There are a number of great things that simply must be said about the fast-paced, Greek mythology-based one that takes place in a space full of quirky, misbehaving undead and all manner of evilly aligned creatures. One where you can acquire a giant menacing mace, and one where you can have multiple ongoing dates, Hades 2. And all I have is about 11 minutes, so time spent not praising this game to the highest degree would be such a waste. Does this game actually hold its own in a year full of GOTY adjacent titles to be the one deserving of such a praise? Short and subjective answer, yes. Relatively long answer, in Hades 2 you actually don't play as Hades, but rather his long-lost daughter Melinoi, 3/4 a god, 1/4 a mortal, and a fully blown witch with her own cauldron, incantations, flowers to pick from her cute little garden, and apparently a goal to eliminate godlike beings and even titans that represent abstract forces of nature. Quite a heavy burden was lifted upon Melinoi's shoulders from her younger years, and it's reflected in how much of a powerhouse she's grown up to be. This game is a roguelike at its core, but it's also an RPG, a visual novel, an actual indie project made and published by a relatively small studio, and uniquely fresh and queer illustration of what the chthonic and Olympian gods look like if they were even more full of satin in their mythological depictions. Or maybe it's just the right amount. All I know about those myths is that plethora of Pantheon's problems would basically be non-existent if Zeus wasn't such a whore. Hades 2 perfectly blends all those styles of different genres and brings a set of characters that players care about, plus the abundance of customization options on top. It's not exactly that original, this whole idea, as this game's a sequel to the similarly praised Hades 1, in which you don't play as Hades as well, but rather his son Zagreus. But the thing is, I simply cannot compare it with the first one, as I straight up didn't play it. Yeah, that probably brings the worth of my opinion somewhat lower.
You are done.
But also maybe it makes it more valuable in a way. I criticize Hades 2 as a standalone project, gameplay being the most integral part of any video game's identity. Hades 2 provides the most engaging type of gameplay by bringing so many options and styles and trinkets and boons and upgrades and familiars and more upgrades, and just holy shit, this game is huge. Its loop is rather simple though. You go out each night into the depths of underworld or to the surface realm of gods and mortals that is somehow even more treacherous than literal hell. Your end goal, despite the path you choose, is similar: to eliminate the ultimate threat by all means applicable. You start only with your weapon and your trusty companion, but as you get further and further, you get more boons, upgrades to your stats, some unique bonuses, you build up synergies, until eventually your build covers the entirety of screen and visual effects. Like that, for example. Basically, if your build's visuals make you a little dizzy or even nauseous, you're on the right track. The music is pumping to the rhythm of your almost intuitive at this point inputs. Pure action accompanied by an unexplainable urge to tame this chaos. Eventually it all leads to your final destination. Either you win it or lose it, doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Your next goal is to do it again, and then some. It's a roguelike, of course, so it's only natural. What was a welcome surprise is how reluctantly I would be going in time and time again, because despite there being only a handful of bosses that are heavily expanded upon, and some of which even go through their own midlife crises, and not that much enemy variety as well, where it shines is in a variety of builds. 6 weapons with 4 unique aspects for each one, like more than 100 boons from all those Olympian gods, 33 keepsakes from almost every single character in the game, your own witchy cauldron for all that witchery stuff, where you create the most powerful permanent upgrades, and some snacks for your pet frog, tools for gathering materials, your arcana cards, and unique arrangements of them. Oh, and by the way, all of what I mentioned is upgradable, usually multiple times. It's probably what I loved about Hades 2 the most. It didn't stop surprising me for the majority of it. I was always offered new ways to up my chances in the wilds. Almost every time I was back in the crossroads, I had some new mechanic presented to me, to the point of me wondering just how much exactly this game offers. It's not some insanely deep shit where usage of phrase skill tree feels just right, but it's more wide, allowing so many synergies that it doesn't stop being engaging throughout all of it. If I was to highlight some of my favorite bits of armor in general, no, do not use Zorfed the Moonstone Axe. She's for the likes of Nemesis, not for goddesses of modest proportion. Infuriating is not such an idea? Zorifit cares not who wields her, so long as she drinks. While most of Malinois's weaponry to some extent relies on speed or quick retaliation, Moonstone Axe abandons all of that and just strikes hard, kind of like I am while using that weapon. It's incredibly satisfying, swiping half a screen of enemies with a single strike, and a classic spin to win approach might feel unstoppable in some instances. You can also transform that axe into a scythe, which mitigates the only downside of this weapon, lower than average attack speed, or turn it into an aspect of local boatman, which lets you casually deploy a hydrogen nuke once in a while. Arcana cards are also cool. Many combinations you can pull off, like Judgment that forces you to not use any. That is strong, I guess, but not for the faint-hearted like I am. What I love is Strength card. There is this mechanic called Death Defiance. Basically, when you would die, you actually gain some HP and keep fighting, and you can stack those defiances to some unnecessary and probably even unfair numbers. But what Strength card does is it presents you with a challenge. Stop being a pussy, have some courage, and gain power in return. Fully upgraded, it makes you take almost half less damage and deal 20% damage more, but unable to use any Death Defiances. Trying this card makes it very unpleasant playing without it afterwards. You don't want to feel like a weakling again, and kind of just get used to its benefits and downsides, at least in my experience. I still do run Max Defiance build from time to time. It's kind of crazy to what extent it expands your effective health pool. And then there are also keepsakes that virtually give you only a small power up, but can shape up your playstyle quite heavily. There is a speedrun keepsake, remind yourself that you are not good at the game keepsake, actually useful in any scenario keepsake, and many more. My personal favorite would likely be Evil Eye. It makes it so foes from whom you've suffered defeat in your last run take 30% more damage. But it's not necessarily always useful, but it feels satisfying gathering all your hater energy and coming back with determination and vengeance. She's Retribution incarnate, so that only makes sense. The integral part of any functional build is boons from the Olympian Gods, and besides there being a fuck ton of those boons, I much more importantly wanted to point out just how awesome interacting with those characters feels. Not just charismatic, snarky, self-obsessed, vengeful and bickering gods, but literally every character in Hades too. Their designs tell a lot, their wonderful voice acting paints them as fully fledged characters, and it's just plain fun coming back to them and having a little chit-chat in the midst of high-octane onslaught that every single night is. And there are a lot of them, each unique and capable of intriguing the player in their own way, and they also have relationships between each other, and so much world building is relayed through those dialogues, such an attention to detail I haven't seen performed anywhere else.
That is quite a color on you.
Although I am a highly dysfunctional gamer and my opinion might not be the most reliable when it comes to comparisons in industry. When you eliminate boss without getting hit, they will insert a little comment regarding your elusive movement. Some of them keep track on how many nights you've been through and will notice when you pass certain thresholds. A certain boss that is all about singing will get especially mad if you turn off in-game music, which effectively silences her. Seeing that crazy amount of attention to seemingly such insignificant things leaves an impression of developers who are extremely passionate about their project, and that's what makes an experience of Hades 2 increasingly terrific. At this point I might sound like one kind of a glazer of the highest degree, so I might be in desperate need to balance out the scale if I intend to present myself as a reviewer of some sort. If I was at a gunpoint, tied to a tree in the deepest taiga while upside down, with my head buried in dirt and my body covered in honey, I would point out one single thing that I disliked about Hades 2. Its dialogues, while can absolutely superb in its execution, sometimes feel redundant. Getting through certain checkpoints in a plot, almost all characters will react to it in their own way, and that's even more reactivity that has to be cool. But not if all of them say all the same stuff through their own words. Now, it doesn't happen that often, as NPCs react to a lot of stuff, but when you get these streaks of just same topics regurgitated through different encounters again and again, it kind of ruins the vibe, hurts the whole picture a lot. Okay, can't do this no more. Back to the glaze sesh. What Hades 2 turns to be in the end is a sequel that is better than its previous installment in almost every way. Title that is worthy to be called at least GOTY adjacent in such a stacked year, and a video game that probably everyone should give a try. I personally am that kind of a person that has a hard time trying something new, and launching new games is always like a leap of faith for me, foolishly afraid that my precious time would not be spent in a delusive feeling of comfort as usual. I instead found myself coming back to it almost every day for a month now, even after I technically technically beat it, it still has a great number of challenges for me, and Vow of Rivals system is incredible in a way that it lets you practically build your own difficulty.
Who am I trying to impress?
I still haven't exhausted dialogues even after a decent amount of time spent there, but at this point I'm actually not sure it's gonna happen. Probably will, but I'm not gonna be surprised if it won't. I'm trying to remember a time where I was like, yeah, devs could have done more here, but I can't come up with a single instance. Of course, that depends on comparisons you come up with in your head, but in mine, Hades 2 is functionally a perfect video game. Something about, like, 6.7 out of 7 if I were to rate it. Makes me simultaneously sad and joyful that I missed first Hades back in its time. Sad because I was clearly missing out on something special. And joyful because there is more of what I loved waiting for me once I'm done with this one. Just have to unlock all the sex scenes before I move on. The last one they secretly added in the latest patch is kind of wild, you guys. Leave a like, subscribe, maybe say hi to everybody in the comments and tell us how was your day. If you have any ideas which games I should review next, I would gladly consider them, yeah.